Hello guys, this is Anita. Since you've been so patient with me recently and my lack of inspiration, I thought I would just get some extra motivation and make this video and show you just how I paint my pictures. I always tape my paper to a board. It's just easier for me this way. The paper is flat and I can then turn it around wherever I want, and it will always have this really nice white border, and no matter how much I splash the paint around or how much I draw with the markers, it's really easy this way. I sketch in a very messy way directly on the paper. I usually have the picture already in my head, so it's just a matter of figuring out the proper placement and little details. I will often also sketch on a smaller piece of paper just to kind of make sure if the idea makes sense. Then I line everything with an 0.05 a fine liner. And really I was trying not to do it and paint directly on the pencil marks, but I just like this much better. It makes sure it's just the picture is always it will never fade because I kind of scrub around with the paintbrush like too much, and then a lot of the lines disappear in the process. So this is much easier in my opinion for me, for my process. I don't really pay attention if the lines are even. I used to do that. I used to be very OCD about my lines, but I realized that they really just disappear under all the layers I put above it. So yeah, that's just not necessary for me. So this picture is made for the 52 weeks illustration challenge for the childhood theme, and this is actually a little bit of a this is actually not even a little bit, this is a memory. I used to do this a lot. Whenever I was alone at home, I would just dress up in bed sheets and pretend I was a princess, and I would just pick out my mom's jewelry, the ones that I like the most, and just wear it, and her oversized shoes, and I would stick pieces of ribbon to my hair because my hair was short at that time and I really like long hair. That was the Sailor Moon phase, and long hair. So I would stick it with just pins to my hair and pretend that the ribbons were hair. They were good times. It's a little bit embarrassing to talk about it, but I kind of look at it in a very sentimental way. So here I'm already starting with painting, and I learned through trial and error that it's the best way for me is to start with very thin layers of paint and then gradually adding more pigment. Simply because it's I have more control over the paint that way. I know I know some people are immediately putting lots of pigment onto the paper. I cannot do it, and that is why also I'm using a very heavy paper. This is a 300 gram watercolor, cold pressed watercolor paper. So it's a very smooth and a very sturdy paper. It really can take a lot. I can keep adding layers of color and keep putting water over it, and it will always dry smooth, which is very important for me because my illustrations are very detailed, and if there are any wrinkles or any tears or any kind of weird texture, the image will lose what I'm trying to convey, if that makes sense. At this point I couldn't decide whether to add red red to that other part of the cloak. These are all bed sheets. They were usually white, but I imagined them to be in all sorts of colors. So that's what I've decided to paint. And because I couldn't decide if I wanted to be one color or many colors, so I just put a little bit of red at the edge of it, just to make sure, just to see how it would look like. Because I had no, just blue was easy. I kept adding blue, and I knew that this was the part where it should be in the shadow, so I had a little bit of purple. However, the red, that was the tricky part. So that's why I started very light, just to see if it made sense. I wanted the edges to feather out, so I'm adding a lot of water. I'm adding a little bit of paint in the middle most of the time, and then kind of spreading it out with water. And I'm not, I used to pay attention a lot to the paint being flat, but it kind of is more fun just to let the paint flow freely, just let it play on the paper. It looks more joyful this way, if you actually let the paint do its thing. So here I'm adding a little bit more of that red. And I think at that point I've decided that I wanted it to be red because I liked the warmth of that color. And I was not satisfied with those washed out colors, so this is where I'm adding more pigment. Still not too much. I'm still very careful. I'm very careful. Probably because I was recording at that time. I didn't want this to go to waste. And I've also decided that under her feet, since the area is a little bit more darker, so that's where the more paint should be concentrated. And then I've decided that, you know, to tie in the floor to the painting, I will make the hair the same color. I have like this darkish, like lightish brown hair kind of, so it made sense. I always had darker hair, so it fit, even it wasn't perfect. So here I'm adding just more water, more paint, and trying to get some texture, delicate texture to the background. Just let the paint flow on the paper and combine. And I really like the blue on brown. The blue watercolor on the brown floor. Since brown and blue are the most neutral gray you can get, it really fits the picture, I think. It makes the floor have this natural tones. And here I'm adding, I wanted to use the smaller paintbrush to just add more color. But then I very quickly changed to a bigger brush because it was just, I don't know, I felt more free to paint with the bigger brush. And since the tip was still very small, so I didn't really care about if I went out of line, or I just didn't care about that. Here I'm taking out some of the paint because I still wanted the shadows to be rather even. It's all good to have background splotchy, but the places like shadows, I like them to be even. I'm still adding more color. At that point I started to kind of feel the picture more. I was still deciding on the colors. Just something didn't feel very right about it. Just the colors did not feel like they were connected. That's why I'm putting another layer over the blue, because the colors did not feel like they were connected, like they were part of one picture. The shades were kind of different in my opinion. This didn't really agree with me. Here I'm adding a little bit warmer tones to the floor, trying to blend it with the background. It's one of my favorite techniques lately. Just slightly feather the colors through the line so that every shape connects to the the other shape, so that her hair the color doesn't stay within the hairlines. I spread it a little bit towards the cape, because then it feels that the colors blend in nicer together. Just adding some color here and there, some to the belt, to the shoes. I completely forgot about the shoes and about the socks. Originally I wanted the socks to be some crazy color, but oh yes, and here this is my attempt to kind of unify the colors a bit more and give them a little bit more of a vintage look. Since this is a memory, I've decided to just cover it with a little bit of this greenish yellow, just very watered down paint. And I'm not even pressing on the paper, I'm just kind of leading the bead down so that the paint spreads on the paper without me touching the paint underneath, if that makes sense. It's very hard to explain it to me, but this way it's kind of like I'm adding a filter on top of my existing paint. I'm actually thinking about it as layers in Photoshop, where I can just add a layer on top of my painting and change its color, change its opacity, to kind of change every single color underneath. And this is a technique that I also use with acrylics, but very rarely with watercolors for some reason, even though it works, obviously. It worked perfectly. And here I didn't really like the water that kind of turned back. See, I'm covering it because I didn't like the way the water worked with the paint in that little part of the cape. It was just too much texture. And I'm really liking this red color on the cape with the purple, just blending nicely into the purple and then into the blue. It's such a nice combination, very fresh and just kind of magical in my opinion. I felt it was really magical. And through the whole painting, I am not paying attention to any shadows or any anatomical rules, any shadow rules actually, except this one, the shade underneath, because that's just something that looks good. Because I just felt that it wasn't necessary. It's I used to worry about it a lot before. And then I stopped because it just ruined the fun of painting. So, you know, I'm just trying to figure my own style through that. So, you know, forget about the anatomy. I am not a realistic painter. I don't have to worry about these things. Except of those little ones like, you know, a shadow underneath the chin. Here I'm using a warm grey Copic marker. It's my favorite color. It's an 03 warm grey, I believe. Which is like this very medium range grey. But it's perfect for layers. So you can stroke once for a lighter color and then stroke twice for a bit darker shade. And I just use it to make everything pop a little bit more. And here I top it off with some blue, light blue Copic marker, and then another different light color of a Copic marker, just to kind of give it some depth. And I'm trying to put these colors over the gray in the specified area, so blue over the dress and this pinkish color over the skin. And this way the color kind of blends nicer with the rest. It doesn't look so harsh. It's a perfect shade for the hair, I have to admit that. And I don't really think about I'm just keep adding it until I feel that, oh yeah, that's enough. That's enough at the moment. She's ready. Until then, I just keep adding little bits here and there, and those places I just feel that there's more depth needed or more color needed. Here I picked a little bit too dark color. And here I started working a little bit more on the lines because the initial lines are very light. So here I make the kind of give them a little bit more depth by darkening the shadow lines. So every line that's in the shadow, or in this case on the bottom basically, will be darker. It looks more natural this way, also makes the picture pop a little bit more, because now all the lines of the initial sketch are covered by the paint and the marker, and they just disappear a little. So here I remember that this was actually a cape and not just a piece of fabric, and it should have a little bit of shadow. And I added the same shadow to the bottom of the dress, or the sheet really, and to the shoes. Just making them stand out a little bit more. Here, adding some more lines. As I said, I really like the blue marker on top of the brown floor panels. Here I tried a little bit of yellow, but I shouldn't have done that actually. I stopped really quickly because I didn't like it. I couldn't fix it anymore. And I accepted it. It wasn't like horrible. I accepted it, but I shouldn't have added. It was a little bit out of place. And here I've done something super crazy. There was some magic missing, and I just went completely nuts with adding little spots and circles and some swirls just to kind of, how to explain it, kind of to make like an appearance of a magical cape. Like it's, you know, it's just kind of swirls and disappears into the distance, and kind of like the memories, kind of like, you know, the imagination that I had at that point. And I also really like drawing circles, so. And I kept adding, after adding the circles with colored pencil, and as you can see here, also markers. Here's the pinkish color. Just in different areas, I add different shades. It's kind of to make them pop more, because they were not that visible. And here I was preparing to add white paint, and even the white paint did not help, because this picture is rather light. And here I'm adding another layer of white, and this is probably my favorite part of painting. I absolutely love white gouache. This is a little bit watered down version, and I added in layers. I water it down quite a bit, and then I keep adding layer over layer until it builds to the proper intensity. Just because I feel like then it's kind of more, becomes more part of a picture. It's not a sharp line, but because I keep adding the pigments in very thin layers, it builds up, and you can still see the very thin lines underneath the sharper ones. So it kind of feathers out, and I like that a lot. It adds more delicate touch to the watercolor painting. I keep adding all kind of bubbles and little sparkles. I just love adding dots here and there, probably everywhere. I also use it to add rather sharp light sources to the ribbons and hair and pretty much everything. Whenever I mess it up, I think, yeah, whenever I mess it up, I just pick up a water brush and kind of wipe it off. Since this is still a water-based paint and it's not dry, even if it's dry, it can still be reactivated and easily taken off. Here I added a little bit of squirrel teeth to my face, my childhood face. And with these white details, the picture, to me personally, it comes to life. It becomes more three-dimensional. Using a water brush is also a very good way of feathering, if that's even a word. Kind of like I said, feathering down the gouache. It gives it, by wiping a little bit off, it just gives it a bit more of a soft finish. So it's not so sharp, especially on a watercolor painting. As you can see, I'm having so much fun, I just keep adding more. So thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and let me know, because that will totally make my day. Thank you again, and hopefully I will see you soon in the next video.